Aleph, Ket, Ohalos. A cistern inside a house contains a candelabrum whose lamp side protrudes upward. An olive press basket lies on the lampstand in such a way that the candelabra was removed. The olive press would rest on the cistern. Shammai says the cistern remains tahor and the candelabrum remains tameh, whereas Beit Hillel says the candelabrum remains tahor. They both agree that if removing the candelabra causes the olive pressing vessel to fall, everything becomes tameh. Using that utensils that are between the edges of the olive press basket and the edges of the cistern, excuse me, remain tahor even if they are deep within the ground. If there's tumah inside the cistern, the house becomes tameh. If there's tumah inside the house, utensils that are inside the walls of the cistern remain tahor. When they're in the area that has a handbreadth cube, when they are not, they become tameh. If the walls of the cistern extend farther than the house in either instance, they remain tahor. A board is placed on top of a new oven and extends a handbreadth on all sides. If there is tumah beneath the board, utensils above it remain tahor, and if there is tumah above the board, utensils beneath it remain tahor. However, in the case of an old oven, the oven becomes tameh, and Rav Yochanan ben Nuri says it's tahor. If the board is placed upon the two ovens and there is tumah between them, they become tameh. Rav Yochanan ben Nuri declares them both tahor. Okay, good.
Okay, base Srida. Okay, so this is like a kind of a bowl of cheres of earthenware. Okay, Nesuna alpi tanur.
Wait, you'd base base.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
This is a perforated slab that's placed on top of an oven.
A perforated slab. Yeah. Okay. So it's kamin reshet, but it's not. It's basically it's not makabel tuma. I don't know that necessarily. So some yesh mefarshim. Gadi says that some people explain that it's kind of a reshet, but it's the holes are close enough that it won't admit tuma. Basically, the important point that we've got over here is that first of all, we're talking about when we talk about an oven without saying anything else about it, we're talking about an old oven. Okay, one that's being baked. So the oven is a kli, it's an earthenware kli. And it's got a lid on top of it, and it's got a tzamid pasil, so it's been sealed. Okay, you got the picture over here. You got an oven, and it's got a seal on top of it, but the lid has got a wide perimeter that extends over the edge of the oven. Okay, tuma tachtavu al gabav. So what happens if if there's tuma underneath the overhang? Okay. So now the overhang is not it's not an ohel. What it is it's just a kli that is sealed on top with a tzamid pasil. So what it can do is if it's not an ohel but it is a kli, then remember it can spread tumah but it can't block it.
Right.
So this whole overhang is going to spread tumah all the way underneath it, and since it can't block tumah, then the tumah breaks through and goes all the way up. Okay. However, in that little section where it's glued down onto the oven, that section and going up is all tahor, because that's where the tzamid pasil is, and there's no way for the tumah to spread to there. So that's the eye of the storm, right? Okay. Okay. Tumah can zero. What happens if what?
A good way to put it, the eye of the storm.
Eye of the storm. So now what happens if the tumah itself is in that little eye of the storm? Then keneged aviro shel tanur, then only connect to other rakia tame. Then all it does is it goes up, because there's no way for it to spread. Okay, it's not over the overhang, it's just over that part over there, and that's sealed with the tzamid pasil. So the entire area underneath it is tahor, and there's nothing to spread it above. So it's just a straight line up, and that's it. Okay, all clear. Now I was thinking that the whole of Maseches Ohalos could be reframed as an engineering textbook in tumah dynamics. You know, you have fluid dynamics, and you have it's engineering stuff. How do fluids flow depending on viscosity? Well, here you've got tumah dynamics. Okay. Mishna Gimel. Neser shu nasun al pi tanur yashan. So once again, you've got the board sitting on top of the old oven. Yotze mizeh umizeh tefach. So on either side of the oven, there's a tefach protruding, aval lo min hatzadin, but only on the two ends. Not the width is basically the same as the width of the oven. Okay, tuma b'tzad. So what happens if you've got tuma underneath the one side? Okay, now just bear in mind again, this is not a tamid pasil case. If it was tamid pasil, it would have told us. So all we've got is a board balanced on top of the oven. So the board forms, the board is definitely forming an ohel over the one side. Okay, but does it go through the oven to the other side? Okay, and the answer over here is kalim shebetzad sheni tohorim. So says the Tanna Kamma. Well, actually no. The oven blocks the tumah from traveling through it because at that particular position where the board is sitting on top of the oven, there's no ohel underneath it. So just because you've got a board, one board that is continuous across there, it doesn't make the ohel spread to the other side. You've got to actually have continuous ohel where it's got space underneath it in order for it to spread from one side to the other. So that's the position of the Tanna Kamma. Rabbi Yossi Matame, he says no, it's one board, and we look at the oven as if it's not there because it itself is not gonna. It doesn't have the ability to screen against tuma, except in the fact that it's a kli cheres that only becomes tame from its inside. But being that it itself is susceptible to tuma, it's not going to screen the tuma, says Rabbi Yossi. I think the halacha follows the Tanna Kamma over here, but yeah, halacha follows the Tanna Kamma. Habetach. Okay, now betach is like a windowsill. Okay, so eino maybe is a toma. So it's a similar sort of position over here. You've got a window, okay, that's leaning with a windowsill that's protruding over the street. Okay, right. And let's say the windowsill also goes to the inside of the house. So it's the same principle that we're talking about with the board that was over the oven. Is that if there's tuma underneath that windowsill, it goes up and it spreads under that windowsill, but that slab of stone that the windowsill is doesn't project into the house. So even though it actually physically goes into the house, but it doesn't form an ohel over the rest of the house, and therefore it does not spread the tumah into the house. Rabbi Yeshua Omer ro'im es habetach ki'ilu eino v'haziz ha'elyon maybe es tumah. Oh, sorry, beg your pardon, I skipped a bit. Hayaboziz. What happens if there's a lintel on top of the window? So basically, you've got exactly the same size lintel as you have of the windowsill. Okay, so they're both projecting out into the street. But you can imagine if you've got like a big window frame that's a decorative window frame or something that projects out into the street. Yeah, there you go. That's your oven, isn't it? Was that?
Yeah. Right.
Right. Okay. So if you've got it, that's our oven situation. Right. That was what we described there. Now we're talking about a window leading out into the street. So it's got a big windowsill, and above it, the window frame goes up and to the sides and to the top as well. Okay. So now the question is, does the bottom? So the bottom one, if you didn't have the bottom windowsill, if all you had was the top frame, then for sure the tumah would spread into the house because it's because you've got a frame over there that's going to bring the tumah into the house because it's over the window. But you've got the bottom windowsill over there, which is blocking it. So Rabbi Eliezer says, "Eino maybe it's a tumah." It doesn't work because the bottom one is going to block the tumah. The bottom one is a perfectly good ohel, and it's going to stop the tumah from coming in. Rabbi Yeshua Omer roim es habetach ki'ilu eino. He says we ignore the presence of the lower sill. V'haziz ha'elyon maybe it's a tumah, and the top one does bring in the tumah. Now it's a fascinating position that Rabbi Yeshua has because that's a big chiddush that he's saying that you ignore the bottom one. And I don't know about you, but my Kahati has got 2 pages of explanation going into this. So it's
pretty long.
Yeah. Okay. We're not going to dive too deep into it. but it's but just to say that it's a big chiddush from Rabbi Yeshua over here. And halacha, where's halacha? He doesn't pass on halacha in mine.
Let's see. It doesn't say. I don't see anything here.
Okay, Mishna Daled. Sandal shel arisa.
Right, so I'm sorry. It says, Rav and Rambam each following his understanding of the Mishnah rule that the halakha follows Rabbi Shua.
Okay, interesting. Very interesting. Curious as to why that would be. Anyway, Mishnah Daled, Sandal shel arisa. So you've got a cot, which has got so the cot has got like a shoe underneath its leg to spread the pressure so it doesn't make a hole in the floor. Okay. So this Sandal shel arisa shepechaso besoch habayis. So the part of it is inside the house. Sandal is okay, so for example, so basically you've got the arisa is in the aliyah. It's in the attic, and it's been wearing away at the floor from the baby moving or whatever, and it's okay. So part of this of the shoe is now protruding through the ceiling into the house. So if there is a gap of a tefach now in the ceiling, hakol tameh. So this is talking about if the where is the tumah? The tumah is in the house. Okay, so everything will come through that hole, even though the shoe, the sandal, is blocking the hole. Nonetheless, it's not considered a proper blockage because the sandal is makabel tumah itself. So since it is makabel tumah, then it cannot block the tumah from coming through.
So if the hole is as big as a handbreadth, everything becomes tumah. If not, we count the way we usually count for a corpse tumah.
Yeah. Okay. The imlav monin bo kaderech shemonin b'meis. But if not, then we talk about it in degrees. So each successive thing that is touching goes down a degree in tumah. So as Kahati explains, so the sandal, is considered as if it is inside the ohel hameis. So it becomes tamei kameis atzmo because it's a kli. It becomes like the meis atzmo. Okay, right? It's avi avos tumah. And it makes the cot that's touching it an avatuma. Okay, the cot is now an avatuma. So both of them need to go do the whole 7-day purification of the paraduma. Okay, but the baby who's resting inside the cot, nase rishon the tuma. He only becomes a rishon because he's touching the cot that's touching the sandal. So he only becomes a rishon and he's got tumas erev. But the rest of the attic is tahor because the tumah doesn't come through come into the attic through less than a tefach of airspace. Okay.
All right. We have we have Yud. Is that right? Yeah, Yud.
Yes.
Right. If the hive is standing in the doorway and there's less than a handbreadth of space between it and the lintel, and there is tumah inside the hive, the house remains tahor. If the tumah is inside the house, anything inside the hive becomes tameh because it is the way of tumah to exit, but not the way of tumah to enter. If the hive is lying on its side outdoors and an olive-sized piece from a corpse is located below or above it, everything directly below or above the olive-sized piece becomes tameh, but anything that is not directly below or above the olive-sized piece or whatever is inside the hive remains tahor. If the piece of corpse inside the hive, everything becomes tameh. If the hive is 1 handbreadth above the ground and there is tumah above it, everything becomes tameh except for that which is inside the hive. If the tumah is inside the hive, everything becomes tameh. And in what case does this apply? When the hive is a utensil. However, if the hive was broken and stuffed with straw, and if it contains 40 saw, according to the Kukamin, and an olive-sized piece of corpse is located beneath the hive, utensils directly below the piece of corpse is as deep as one can go remain tameh. If the piece of corpse is above the hive, the utensils directly above the piece of corpse go up to the sky, become tame. If the piece of corpse is inside the hive, only that which is inside the hive becomes tame. Okay.
I think there's a
One,
little more left there, isn't there? You didn't
I'm
finish.
sorry,
I think you
I
didn't
couldn't finish.
finish that.
I finished. If the hide is a hammered above the ground and there's tumor above it, or whatever is below the hide becomes tame. If the tumor is inside the hide, whatever is made inside, whatever is inside becomes tame, and the tumor is above the hive, utensils directly above it go up to the sky, become tame. Right?
Okay. That.
And Caleb. Okay. Go Zion. Hey. Regarding a worn out sieve or sifter or sieve that was prepared for sitting, Rabbi Akiva rules tame. For the cages, it's a common rule of tahor unless one trims it. A child's chair that has legs, even if it lacks the height of a handbreadth, is tame. Concerning a birth shirt of a child, Reb Eliezer says any size, but the sages say until it has a prescribed size and is a measured double. These are measured double: a shoe, knee breeches, pants, a hat, and a hollow belt. Regarding a patch that is attached to the border, if it is unfolded, it is measured while it is unfolded. If doubled, it is measured while it is doubled. If a piece of cloth that was woven to the size of 3 handbreadths by 3 handbreadths of contracted midmas truma, and subsequently one finished the whole piece of cloth, and afterward one thread was removed from the original piece of cloth, it becomes tahor from midras truma, but it is tummy due to contact. And with a midras, if one thread was removed from the original cloth and subsequently one finished the whole piece of cloth, it is tummy due to contact with midras truma. Okay.
Good. Okay.
And midros. Okay, Aleph died. Aleph Dalet. There were 7 gateways in the courtyard, 3 in the north, 3 in the south, and 1 in the east. In the south was the kindling gate, the second was the gate to the firstborns, third to the way was the water gate, to the east was the Nicanor gate, and this gate had 2 chambers, one to the right, one to the left. One was the chamber of Pinchas the Claudia, and one was the chamber of the makers of the Chavitim. And those gateways in the north, the gateway of the ray and the gateway was like a pavilion, and a loft was built upon top of it, so the Kohanim would stand guard above it and Levim below. And it had an opening to the Chel. Second to it was the gate of offering. Third to it was the hall of fire. And there were 4 chambers in the hall of fire, like suites that open into a ballroom. 2 chambers were located in the consecrated portion of the hall of fire, and 2 were located in the unconsecrated portion, and the ends of beams separated between the consecrated area and the unconsecrated area. And what purpose did these chambers serve? The southwestern chamber, as it was the chamber of sacrificial lambs, the southern eastern chamber was the chamber of the makers of panan bread, and the northeast chamber in the sons of the Hasmoneim concealed those stones of the altar that the Greek kings had defiled. In the northwestern chamber, through it, the Kohanim would descend to the immersion room.
Okay. The Zorah.
Zorah. Base Gimel. These items of the idolaters are prohibited, and their prohibition is prohibition against all benefit. The wine, the vinegar of idolaters was that was initially wine, and hadrakin, that's just wrong. Hadrakin, earthenware.
Adrian.
There's a IC at the end there. I don't know. Hadrian, earthenware, and heart piece skins. Rabbi Shimon Gamil says, when an incision is round, it is prohibited. When it is oblong, it is permitted. Meat that is brought into a place of idol worship is permitted, but that which goes out is prohibited because it was like sacrifices of the dead, and these are the words of Rabbi Akiva. With those who go on a pagan pilgrimage, it is forbidden to transact business, but with those returning, it is permitted. If there were skin bottles of idolaters or their wares, and the wine of a Jew is kept in them, it is literally they are prohibited. And prohibition is a prohibition against all benefit. These are the words of Rav Meir, but the Chachamim say it is their prohibition is not a prohibition against benefit. Rabbi Huda said Rabbi Yisrael posed a question of Rabbi Shua while they were traveling. He said to him, why did they prohibit the cheeses of the idolaters? He answered him, because they were curdled with the rennet of an unslaughtered carcass. He said to him, but is not the rennet of a burnt offering more strictly forbidden than the rennet of an unslaughtered carcass? Yet they said a Kohen who is not fastidious about may gulp it raw. And though they did not agree with him, nevertheless, they said, one may not benefit, but one may not commit me'ilah. He then answered him because they curdled it with the bread of calf sacrificed to idols. And he said to him, if so, why did they not prohibit it for all benefit? And he said, diverted him to another matter. He said to him, Mishmael, my brother, how do you read the verse, Kitovim dechoche v'mayim, or Kitov the dayach? He replied, Kitovim the dayach, and the bread, and oil, and Rebbe and his court permitted the oil, and cooked food, and preserved it into which they are accustomed to put wine and vinegar.
Well,
And
hold
minced
on,
top.
you skipped a page. You skipped a page there for sure.
I did, right. He told him to die. Said him to him, it is not so, and his fellow verse demonstrates regarding it. The Reach Shemanachai Tovim.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay. Okay, you've got my Aleph base.
Okay. How do they release their co-wives? If a man's daughter or any of one of those forbidden relationships was married to his brother and he had another wife as well and he died just as his daughter is released, so too is her co-wife. If his daughter's co-wife went and married his second brother and he also had another wife and then he died, just as his daughter co-wife is released, so too is her co-wife's black co-wife, even if they are 100. How is it they are died their co-wife? How is it that they died their co-wives are permitted? If a manslaughter or any one of these forbidden relatives was married to his brother and he also had another wife and his daughter died, and he or divorced and then his brother died, her co-wife is permitted. Anyone who was able to refuse but did not do so, her co-wife requires chalitza but is prohibited from yibum. 6 forbidden relations are more stringent than these. For they are married to others, their co-wives are permitted, his mother, father's wife, father's sister, father's brother's wife, and paternal brothers. Beit Shammai permit the co-wives of the brothers, but he'll also forbid them. If they perform chalitza, Beit Shammai disqualify them from marrying into the priesthood, but Beit Hillel qualify them. If they were taken in yibum, Beit Shammai qualifies them, but Beit Hillel disqualifies them. Even though these prohibited and these permitted, these qualified and these qualified, Beit Shammai did not refrain from marrying women of Beit Hillel nor Beit Hillel of Beit Shammai. Despite all the things that they judged tahor and all the things they judged tamei, they did not refrain from using each other's utensils for purposes of tahar.
Okay.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And we are in Kalayim. Right. Kalayim. He who drives 40 and he who sits in the wagon receives 40. The mayor exempts, but in the third, which is tied to the straps, is forbidden. A horse may not be tied to the sides of a wagon or to the back of a wagon, nor may Libyan donkeys be tied to camels. Rabbi Yehuda says all offspring of a horse through sired by a donkey are allowed with one another. All offspring of a donkey, though sired by a horse, are likewise allowed with one another. However, the offspring of a horse are forbidden with the offspring of a donkey. Peruta are forbidden, but the Ramak is permitted. Wild men like creatures are wild animals. Rabbi Yossi says they convey they will convey tent uncleanliness as does a human being. The hedgehog and the weasel of the bushes are wild animals. The weasel of the bushes, Rabbi Yossi say, and Beit Shammai say, an olive bolt contains uncleanliness by carrying and a lentil bolt by contact.
Okay.
We're done. Okay, we have. We're going to finish this. I think we're going to finish it. No, we won't finish it tomorrow. We'll finish it.
Well, when we finish it, it's Shvius next.
Shvius, okay. Thank you very much. It's surprising me with this early minion stuff.
It's it happens when the sun is coming up earlier. I just I'm finding it's lighter, and something inside my body is saying, okay, it's time to get up.
Time to get up, right? It's going to change in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, have a good day. Thank you. Bye.